Hello and welcome back to the channel where, we've got another Alfa Romeo Tonale with us, but this could be the one you've been waiting for because it's the plug-in hybrid model and it's got more electric range than all of its rivals. If you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button. Right, let's do this.
All right, so let's address the main things with this car. Firstly, its price. It's more expensive even in this Veloce trim here than its rivals. Its rivals like that BMW X1 plug-in hybrid and the Audi Q3 are both a bit cheaper. So this car's got to do a little bit more to justify its price, but thankfully, it does offer more electric range. Alfa Romeo actually claims it will do 49 miles in purely electric mode. And actually, I have seen it go over 40 miles when it was charged up on this, and it wasn't even charged to the maximum. And because you've got so many drive modes, you can maintain your mileage. We'll talk about that in just a second. But let's just talk about how it feels from the get-go. Well, it feels just like the other Tonales, which is a good thing because they are really nice to drive. The petrol version we drove late last year, actually, well, it really impressed me with its handling and the way that the engine was quite smooth, but it just didn't feel very powerful. But this car, with its mixture of petrol up front and electric driving the rear wheels, well, now it's got the oomph to potentially justify the Alfa Romeo badge on its nose. I think this could be the most Alfa Romeo Tonale money can buy. So that means it's gonna have to feel pretty nippy and go around corners. And you know what? It does handle very nicely indeed. The ride is fantastic, and I genuinely mean that. Hybrids with big batteries in the boot. This has got 15.5 kilowatt hours of battery in the boot. That's not going to be light, and yet it rides really, really well. It's so supple. It absorbs everything you can throw at it. I've been driving over potholes, cambers. I even hit a big stone earlier, and it just smothers out the road ahead. Here, look, I'm going to dip a wheel onto the grass. Totally smooth, it's lovely. I don't know what they've done with the damping, and this car has two-stage adaptive damping, so you can adjust it. You can go between a softer and a harder setting. But just in the standard setting right now, it's really, really very nice. And yet, when I go into a corner, it steers really nicely as well. The car doesn't feel top-heavy at all. It feels just like the Giulia Saloon, actually, because it's got a very quick steering rack. And Alfa Romeo has retuned the steering rack for this car, so it just feels a little bit sharper to suit the slightly different weight distribution of this car. It's pretty close to 50-50, but now you've got a lot more weight over the back, so it is going to change things. What about this powertrain? Now, of course, this is the most important difference in this car compared to the petrol model we drove last year. Now, with that 1.3 turbocharged engine, I have to admit, if you just ask for a bit of power and you put your foot down, it's all electric. I have to admit the petrol engine feels very much like it's kind of there, but the electric motor is really doing the heavy lifting here. It gives you 250 Newton meters of torque to the rear axle. When you put this in electric mode, it's actually a rear-wheel drive electric car, which is quite interesting. But really what I'm feeling when I put my foot down is the electric oomph. I really get that shift. And the gearbox, a 6-speed automatic, controlled by these Alfa Romeo paddles, which are always lovely. If I drop down and I click it across into dynamic mode, now it sets the car into its most reactive setting. We've got a nice straight road ahead of us, so let's see how it does with my foot down. Oh, yeah, that's quick. It will do 0 to 62 in 6.2 seconds, and you can actually do over 80 miles per hour in purely electric mode as well. So there's plenty of mixture of performance there, whether you want the maximum punch from both sides of the powertrain, or whether you just want to trundle around in electric mode. It's got the oomph. It's a really, really good powertrain, and like the rest of the car, like that ride, which has actually stiffened up now in dynamic mode, I can soften it off, thankfully, even with the engine in its sportier setting. Well, like the ride, this powertrain feels really refined, so nicely tuned to work from both ends. It just feels like it's always one step ahead of what I'm about to ask for it. Let's see how it is at being an Alfa Romeo. Ride is still excellent. And around this bend here, see if I can get it loaded up. I just want to feel the balance because it delivers quite a lot of torque to the rear. Oh, it's so quick to pick up. Ooh, it's quick. It really is quick, and it's one of those things where it just builds and builds. You can feel the electric torque just really carrying you along. But then when the electric torque fades away, do you know what? That 1.3 litre tiny little engine is quite good. It does pick up where that motor leaves off. But I just want to feel how the balance is over some bends. So let's just get it around this corner here. Lovely open roads. Oh, it's so quick on the front. It's really nice. And dare I say it, it doesn't sound bad either. It's very quiet, as you'd expect, but it doesn't sound wheezy like so many smaller engines can do at revs, because I guess it's got that electric assistance to just give it this muscle. The engine actually sounds pretty good. And then of course you've got this 6-speed gearbox, which, yeah, okay, it's got fewer ratios than some cars, but you just don't need it to have short ratios because there's so much low down electric torque. So it means that the ratios can be fairly long, and it means that, yeah, I find myself not changing gear too much, but when I do change gear, it's lovely and rapid. It reacts really quick on the way up and really quick on the way down. Here is a corner. Let's see how it goes with a bit of load in the suspension. I've got it in the softer mode. Oh, yeah, it's good, it's good. Corner's so flat. I just don't see the point of having the stiffer mode, not in Britain anyway. I bet on smooth, maybe German roads, you don't really get smooth roads in Italy, they're like they are here. But in Germany, yeah, I can imagine you'd use that stiffer setting. But here, it corners flat enough as is, and the balance is really good. And the brakes are excellent. See, now I must admit, the steering feel, well, there's not much in the way of steering feel at all. It's a very light steering rack. Little bit over-assisted for my liking, but in terms of front-end responses, well, it's really, really very good. And the brakes as well, the modulation and the control, the feeling of the car shifting between regen and just classic braking, pad to disc stuff. Well, I can't tell the difference. The brake pedal just feels really nice and progressive. The brakes are very, very strong as well. Now, if I click it through into its different modes, we've got DNA as we always do on Alfa Romeos. I'm out of dynamic now into natural or normal, as we'd probably say. Now let's go into advanced efficiency mode, which, well, does what it says on the tin really. And I can see immediately the engine has just switched off. And now as I coast down a hill, the car is actually starting to charge. So it's pretty standard stuff for a hybrid model. It's standard as well on electric cars when it starts charging when you're going downhill. But what's interesting about this Tonale, and which emphasizes just how interesting this powertrain is that when I'm on a flat surface, it will actually sail along and it will just coast. So I won't really lose any speed whatsoever. I will just coast along, and the only thing slowing me down will be the air resistance and the drag. But then if I go downhill, the car will maintain my speed and it will regen. So basically I'm putting energy back into the battery. I can, of course, turn up the amount of regen that the car generates. I can go into a charge save mode, and then I can go into a mode where it actually just charges up to the maximum, so it uses the engine as a generator as well as to power the car. But I found that the mileage actually does just stay static when you put it into that save mode. It really does work very well. So you can arrive at a town or a city and know that you're going to have the range you need in electric. And actually, even in this fully electric mode here, even without the engine turning on, it's still got loads of oomph. I mean, we're slightly downhill at the moment, but if I put my foot down, there's a right old kick in the backside. And as I said, it can go up to 84 miles per hour actually, so it's just over 80, which of course is above any UK speed limits. So there's no reason why, if you have the range, why you couldn't just get to wherever you need to go without waking that petrol motor. So, if you hadn't have guessed, I am a big fan of the Alfa Romeo Tonale in plug-in hybrid form. I'm also very relieved because when we drove the petrol one a few months ago, I said it was good, but I thought the best was yet to come. And yes, it does feel like the engineers have thrown all of their effort at this hybrid setup. It's refined, it's genuinely quick, and well, the car is just very cohesive. Everything feels nicely put together and it rides spectacularly well. I really, really mean that. I wouldn't bother going for the 20 inches that they offer in the rim package for the Speciale, for example. I'd stick with the 19 because it rides so nicely, especially on the 2-stage damping you get on this car. And let's not forget, it still looks like this. And all right, yeah, it's a bit more expensive than its rivals, but I think it justifies it because of that setup and the interior, which remains lovely. You do lose a bit of boot space, of course you do. There's a battery underneath, but actually inside, you can't tell the difference. This is a really, really nice car, and on first impressions, I'm totally sold. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Do you think this car is the one to go for, or do you still think you'd rather a Q3 or the X1 in plug-in hybrid form? Let us know, and if you enjoyed the video, do click that thumbs up button, and if you haven't, get subscribing to the channel. See you soon.